All right, so our project is called The People of Pearl, The Many Faces We Meet. And the main gist of our research was determining trends on Pearl Street with demographics, how different demographics of people interact, and that was kind of like the main inspiration for our research. So the intro, these are some questions that we kind of were discussing at the very beginning that led us to choose this topic. We all kind of agreed that Pearl Street is a really interesting place to study. And then from that, we came up with some questions. So those are, do workers on Pearl Street enjoy their job? Do they prefer to serve the college students or the Boulder residents? What places do college students prefer on Pearl Street versus the places adult couples and families could prefer? What is the relationship between different demographics on Pearl Street, servers versus customers, college students versus adult residents, different things like that? And how do people react to the Boulder downtown area near Pearl Street specifically being known as a college town? So for a little bit of the background, most of our background came from referencing readings that we discussed in class and outside sources as a way to just construct our study. So some examples of this where we referenced Tracy a lot in our study, and an example of how we referenced Tracy was making participants feel comfortable, because Tracy outlines every step to completing a qualitative study, and one of those things could be like building rapport with your participants. The article that we discussed in class by Conquer Good had to do with studying the Hmong culture. So we took from this article studying at the very beginning with field observations, studying the culture on Pearl Street and identifying patterns, and then using those patterns to develop the questions that we wanted to ask. And then Hellman was an outside source that we found, and this author interviewed employees in a workplace after implementing a new model to improve efficiency. And we used their data section of their qualitative study to determine how they structured their interview questions. So they started with more objective questions and then led into more deeper open-ended ones. And then Simonson, we referenced Simonson for performative criticism and just how we wanted to structure how we made inferences based on our research and how we kind of turned into a critical study analyzing the different demographics and how they interacted and power dynamics and things like that.
So for research methodology, I found this quote in the Tracy book, the kind of last part of it. It just says, like, the focused study of research methods takes these basic everyday actions one step further to a systematic analysis that may lead to better understandings, not only for us, but for others. So kind of just, that was what our goal was, to obviously just kind of make a better understanding of kind of these interactions on Pearl Street. And so we did that through interviews and participant observation and field interviewing. So our interviews consisted of not only servers and bartenders who worked on Pearl Street, but also customers, whether they were college students or families. We also interviewed customers that go to Pearl Street often. And then we also participated in participant observation. We obviously got cut a little bit short with the COVID-19 pandemic, but we did get to go to Centro one time towards the beginning during our first interview with Brooke. And we got to kind of just watch her and watch the interactions and kind of just see what was going on in that communicative element. So next slide.
So for the research our site was Pearl Street, as we mentioned before, specifically the area around 10th and 11th Street. And we focused on the big restaurants like Centro and Bar Taco and big gathering areas. Our participants were some restaurant employees like Brooke, Amanda, Joseph, and then Cora was a restaurant employee as well as a frequent college student customer on Pearl Street. And then Jackson is also a college student and frequent customer. And then we also interviewed Sharon, who's a working mother of two and Boulder resident, because we wanted to get the perspective and some responses that were outside of the college realm and had to do with like relationships between people who aren't going to see you but do live in the area and interact on Pearl Street.
So when it came to our interview guide, we wanted to make sure, as Becca was saying, that we were encompassing all sorts of participants in our study. And so we created 2 separate guides, one for the consumers and one for the employees. And they focused on the patterns that each was noticing at their time on Pearl Street, and specific questions that kind of catered to their personal experiences while being there, whether it was working or just spending time. They were semi-structured, so they allowed for some interpretation and some probing for further questions, following what we had initially wanted from each interview. But we wanted to make sure that we were getting enough basic information from each one of our participants to be able to answer questions like the patterns that they were noticing, and other ideas like that. So these are our 2 interview guides, employees on the left and consumers on the right.
Okay, so kind of just a little quick analysis or discussion of the analysis and findings. Before we started this project, we kind of anticipated a negative reaction towards the college students from the other side, so from the bartenders and servers and the other non-college residents in Boulder. However, I think that we got a pretty inclusive array of data that we found that the age diversity on Pearl Street is really, really appreciated in different areas for different reasons. However, we found that especially for the employers, or the employees I meant, the biggest incentive was always money. So regardless of who their favorite demographic was, it didn't matter. It was always the demographic that they thought tipped them the best. So for example, like Brooke and Amanda, they both thought that older couples tipped them better. So they were expressive in how much they enjoyed serving older couples because of that. Whereas Joseph, he expressed that he loved serving millennials because he felt like he got along with them way better and he felt he got better tips from them. So it was kind of cool to see which different bars catered to which different age demographics and how that kind of played out. So kind of like I said, just kind of wrapping that up, you might find kind of more college students at places like the Downer or Press Play or something like that, and you might see older couples getting a nice bite to eat at Centro or whatever.
So ultimately, our biggest takeaways that it came down to were that we were finding that our original hypothesis was disproved, that Pearl Street is not heavily dictated by college culture and timing when it comes to the demographics that come to each shop or each restaurant or each bar. Compared to a lot of other communities, Pearl Street is unique in that it encompasses all of these different demographics and allows them to mingle together at all different parts. They're all different times of the day throughout the week. While, as Hannah talked about, there were certain times throughout the week or certain demographics that were found to tip more or to be coming around different parts of the location in order to get, for their own different purposes, like family dinners or such. For the most part, they were all like families of all ages, seniors, college students, couples. They were all able to come and attend the same outdoor festivities and restaurants that everybody else would be going to at the same time. It really just allows the community to come together at a whole, no matter what day or time of the week it is. And this was found originally, well, there we go. These are our